involved, I'm hoping you can maybe figure out who's telling the truth on this and what the real bottom line issue here is. So basically, my contention is that since World War II, Ukraine has endured 4 major revolutions. 3 of them, I believe, were engineered by George Soros, who was likely acting in concert with world bodies. I honestly think that the ousting of Poroshenko for Zelensky in the last election was not the result of organic processes, but also traces back to George Soros. We'll look at how George Soros has done this over the years, and it's been 25 or more years, and how the model of Ukraine is exported around the world. It's all done in the name of anti-corruption, and as with everything else, the globalists say it's a 180-degree inversion of the truth. They profit mightily from corruption. This is what's going to come up. George Soros and civil society organizations. The International Monetary Fund, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the World Bank are kind of going to come up. The European Union, fake news, and George Soros's puppetry of many, many, many people in Canada. And this ties to the CIA. The CIA, and just some incidental people, are Victor Pinchuk. I might briefly mention the Clintons and Joe Biden. I am not an expert at all. This is not a comprehensive look at this. And I might be missing giant things that other people know about. I might be. But this is a collection of information that I found and I want to present to you. Let's start here. There's an article in New York Magazine from 1995 by Connie Brook. It's called The World According to George Soros. Step 1. George Soros buys Bohdan Havrilician. It began back in the fall of 1991 when Ukraine declared its independence, and Soros had what he calls a seminal meeting with Dr. Bohdan Havrilician, an internationally known Ukrainian economist, blah, blah, blah. Bohdan Havrilician is not Ukrainian. He was a refugee from the war. Same pattern as always. And they moved all over the world and they landed in Canada. Now, here's an article from 1992 in the Edmonton Journal. Edmonton, Alberta, Canada is where a lot of Ukrainian immigrants settled. So in 1992, a whole bunch of people from that area were selected or elected themselves to go to Ukraine to enact the changes, wrenching changes in store, shifting to a free market economy, a precarious job. And this is a big article, and there are many such articles from Canada at that time. And it lists a bunch of people that we're going to go over there. One of them is Ole Havrilician, and his father is Bohdan Havrilician. This is who Connie Brook alleges George Soros bought. And indeed, in this article from 1992, it says that Bohdan Havrilician was the first displaced person of the post-war era in Canada to earn a university degree. In his case, it was in engineering. Then he went to work for Alcan, an aluminum company, before heading up the International Management Institute in Switzerland. How odd. It is in that position that the elder Havrilician established close ties with George Soros, a Hungarian who made his fortune in America. Now spends a significant portion of his wealth to facilitate a renaissance of democracy throughout Eastern Europe. It says President Leonid Kravchuk appointed a special international committee to advise him on a future course for action in Ukraine. Bohdan Havrilician is co-chairman of that committee, and Soros is seen as something of a patron saint. Although the younger Havrilician, that's Ole, Bohdan's son, did not discuss it, the opportunity to take on the job of Deputy Minister of Finance came by way of his father's ties to the Soros network. But Havrilician was also well suited for the job, it says. In addition to his position at Queen's University, that is, in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, he had worked for the World Bank, which has considerable interest in charting the future course in Ukraine. And there you see the ties. There you see Bohdan, Ole, the World Bank, and George Soros. Puppet mastering. Poor Ukraine. Ole Havrilician says his job is to deal with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and other organizations that have a stake in Ukraine's transition. Havrilician says the kind of backlash the world saw when Russian President Boris Yeltsin proclaimed he would not be dictated to by the IMF or World Bank has not been a problem in Ukraine. There is, he insists, no reluctance to move in this direction. That's because essentially what happened was George Soros saw fit to buy himself the leader of the Ukraine and then get the leader to replace all the bureaucracy, the important ones, with like a shadow cabinet. Havrilician, for example, and his son, not Ukrainian, came from Canada, and the World Bank got made the Minister of Finance for Ukraine. All right, so let's move on. By the way, here's Ole here. This is from September 3rd. From the IMF and digitization to agriculture and anti-corruption, Ole Havrilician take a look at what Zelensky needs to address to improve the economy and raise the standard of living for Ukrainians. 28 years later, he's still selling this same line. It has never worked. Soros bought those people. Okay. Another person that was involved at that early stage was someone called Helena Freeland. Helena Freeland practiced law in Canada for nearly 20 years and even made a run for parliament before coming to Ukraine in 1992 to work on a doctoral thesis in women's studies. After helping to organize some legal seminars, she was asked to put together her proposal for a legal reform in Ukraine. In working on that proposal, she met reformist deputy Sergei Holovati. The two convinced billionaire philanthropist George Soros to fund their joint project, the Ukrainian Legal Foundation. So there's George Soros buying the law now. Here's a second article from Canada in 1992, all about the Canadian advisors helping Ukraine rebuild a nation. Build us a legal system, would you? It says. So from that article, we learned that Helena was meeting with the country's president, Leonid Kravchuk, and he was going to get her to set up a new legal system. She was given the mandate to overhaul the country's legal system. The presidential decree would ensure that individuals at every level of government would cooperate with her, a Canadian female professor in women's studies, who's funded by Soros. Further in that article, we read, the judges back home would have a heart attack if we were proposing something as radical as this. Helena Freeland is not the only Canadian involved in this reform and creation of a new legal system in the Ukraine, because it says already several top names in the field in Canada have agreed to participate. Somebody from the Supreme Court of Canada and somebody from the Ontario Court of Appeal. And another one is Bohdan Krochenko, the University of Alberta political scientist who now co-chairs the Ukrainian president's International Board of Advisors. And over here from that article about Soros buying people to own Ukraine, we see that he bought Bohdan Krochenko back in 1991. I just want to mention the